It's big, it's long, and could cause an extinction event on Isla Sorna. That's right, one of the people working on the models for Jurassic Park 3 said that Acid 87 had the ability to cause an extinction event on the island.
So we went after a dinosaur that literally could cause an extinction on the island.
Yup, the T-Rexes, the Raptors, and even the massive sauropods could be decimated based on what the people working on the movie set said. Now it obviously can't just wipe out an entire island in a day like Thanos, but over time he could gradually diminish the population of most species on the island. Even without that incredible lore drop, the Spinosaurus still has many incredible feats of his own, a known T-Rex killer and the absolute authority that survived the most dangerous island in the Jurassic franchise. Well, other than the one in Rebirth of course, but I digress. There are a few things on Sorna that could pose a threat to his life, but that's Sorna. The island we're going to be dropping him off in has giant roided up apes, fish the size of boats, and T-Rexes that are much larger and more durable than the ones he's used to fighting. That's right, we're going to see how well our boy Acid 87 could do on perhaps the most dangerous dinosaur universe. Well, besides Primal, and it's not just dinosaurs that would be threats, even the insects would make any Jurassic Park fan pass out. We're going to be assessing all of 87's most powerful attributes and some known weaknesses that we've seen in both Jurassic Park 3 and Carp Cretaceous, and put those feats to the test on an island that would make Isla Sorna seem like child's play. So strap in folks, this is going to be an interesting one. But just before that, consider hitting that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates on a new weird video I do. And join the Discord down below in the description. If you're a fan of dinosaurs or anything prehistoric really, then you're gonna love it here. If you're a skilled artist, you can showcase your art to fellow artists. And if you're not good at art, you can still showcase your art. Or just talk about anything with big teeth. So with the promotions out of the way, let's finally get on with the video. For this simulation, we're going to be using Acid 87 when he was at his largest and most powerful, which would be him in Camp Cretaceous. In Jurassic Park 3 he was around 8.6 tons, but in the events of Camp Cretaceous he became the largest theropod in the franchise along with the Giganotosaurus. At a length of over 15 meters and pushing 10 tons, he truly was massive, but that size did not hold him back when he wanted something to happen. For this section we're going to be taking a look at his strength, durability, endurance, speed and overall intelligence, to get a gist of his overall abilities before he enters terrestrial hell. The Spinosaurus was one of the few dinosaurs that was an illegal project by none other than Dr. Henry Wu, and he was treated horribly. Constantly tested on it and abandoned when he was no longer useful for their research. Now this of course would cause anyone to hate people, but he really hated people. After so many different installments of the franchise since the movie was made, no other dinosaur has shown more malice for our species than Acid 87. He was somehow able to track a small group of people all over Sorna no matter what part of the island they went, and only gave up temporarily when a massive oil fire separated him from his targets. He was released into the island as a juvenile, so just over 20 feet. And during this time he would have had to compete or at the time avoid the larger and more dangerous carnivores that were now on the loose, until he eventually grew and became the biggest and baddest things there. Even the T-Rexes were targets. When it comes to feats of strength, he probably has the most along with the Indominus Rex. Early on in the movie he was able to tear a plane apart, not just crush it or damage it a little, straight up tear the plane to shreds. And when he realized that the humans weren't getting out, he decided to stomp on the planes so that they would come out like an empty toothpaste case. Just to put the plane in that condition it was after 87 was done with it would require forces between 35 and 50,000 lbf. Those are some numbers that shouldn't be possible even for something of his size. As a matter of fact, if this wasn't fiction he could have seriously hurt himself performing this feat. But who cares about planes, huh? What about the classic scene that made all the Rex fans cry? Actually it still makes them cry. It's been more than 20 years, get over it. Your favorite dinosaur is now the most powerful terrestrial predator ever to walk the earth. Let us Spino enthusiasts cling on to our past glory. Anyway, the Spinosaurus was able to tussle with an adult bull Rex. Tussle would be a poor choice of words, more like disrespect. 87 held that T-Rex in place, like he made it halt for a few seconds and then snapped its neck. He was also able to burst through a massive metal fence that was meant to keep dinosaurs like him out, and played with a massive steel cage like it was a Rubik's Cube. His abilities don't stop there. When he was at his largest in Camp Cretaceous, he was able to burst through a canyon wall to eat Diego, and sustained no injury. And then there's the underrated feat that's always overlooked. He held back an automatic industrial gate with one hand. Even though he did eventually let go for a few seconds, he was holding back at the bare minimum 5 tons of force with just one hand, and that's kinda lowballing it. So if he did decide to swing on a human instead of just, biting them, they'd be reduced to dust. But just like the first movie, I know it's the dinosaurs you guys want to hear about. Well, he fights with another stronger T-Rex and wins again, but doesn't finish the job. During the process he was able to slam the mega theropod onto a massive tree and made it bend and damaged its neck, but this time with just his jaws. Somehow the Spinosaurus, despite supposedly having the weakest jaws of any mega theropod in the franchise, was to this day the only one seen able to crush a T-Rex's neck so hard that it fractures. I don't know if it was for plot or if the directors really just liked the dinosaur, but he was able to do it, so we'll count it in. Staying in Camp Cretaceous, his durability feats are just as, if not even more impressive than his strength. Asset 87 was able to fall directly on his sail and took no damage. That's more than 10 tons of what's supposed to be the most fragile part of his body, and yet it didn't have a dent. Even in the first movie, when the plane hit his sail, it barely affected him, and then there were the bullets he tanked from the mercenaries who had military grade artillery. Like the Indominus, he didn't show any signs that he had been shot. No blood, no limp, just a hateful creation. He was also able to tank a hit from a Kentro's tail directly to the face. These Stagomizers are more than 2 feet long, and not one was able to pierce his hide. He just got up and shook it off. Speaking of piercing hides, the T-Rexes of this franchise are barely able to get past his thick skin. Bull in the third movie bit on 87's neck with all of his might, even bringing the Spinosaurus to the floor, yet all we see is a few small patches of blood and a barely affected Spinosaurus. Not just that, but it seems that 87 is not all that susceptible to blunt force when he's at his full health. We've seen what a T-Rex's head is able to do in this franchise, and while that headbutt did temporarily stun him, he quickly recovered and put the Bull Rex in his place. As for the fight with Big E.T., that was even worse. Imagine regaining consciousness after being starved and mind-controlled for days, and all you see is an 8.7-ton animal running straight at you at top speed. My boy barely had 3 seconds to catch himself and didn't react fast enough. He was slammed into a tree, bitten, and then tossed on the floor so hard that he rolled over his own sail. And what will you know, not a limp or a drop of blood seen. As far as endurance goes, he takes that too. Like each megatheropod in this franchise has their own thing that they excel in. Rexy is the most durable, arguably. The Indominus is the smartest and most crafty, etc, etc. But the Spinosaurus definitely has the most endurance. He chased down the mercenaries, then seconds later got hit by a plane, and when he located said plane and tore it in half, he then had to chase after the humans again for a decent distance, and right after all that cardio and heavy lifting, he had to fight an adult Rex, tired and still won. The only reason he didn't chase the main cast was because he was exhausted. Hell, I would be too. But not too far after that, he travels across different sections of the map just to kill them. Like damn dude, it's not that serious. He does similar things in Camp Cretaceous. Even when he's starved and dehydrated in a desert, he was still able to chase the 6 until the end. He's very agile too. For something of his size and shape, you'd expect him to be more stiff. Well, this is fiction and not real life, so of course he's able to do tight turns and get the upper hand on his opponents. Asset 87 also has the most battle intelligence of any theropod in the franchise, probably besides the big chunk in Rebirth. I was going to say Zeb, but then I remembered that the gig in the prologue isn't exactly him. If it was, then yeah, he has more than 87. But other than that, he fought more megatheropods than any of the other dinosaurs. As a matter of fact, dinosaurs in general. He's a known T-Rex killer by Eric, so I assume that Bull wasn't the only one he killed then. And while he was growing up, he definitely had to compete with raptors. Then there was the menagerie of creations he had to do forced combat with on Manticore's Island. And don't any of you dare say Rexy has more battle intelligence than him. Only until the events of Jurassic World does she fight things in her weight class, which doesn't really go according to plan. Damn, those directors really do hate this dinosaur. And when it comes to just pure IQ, I'd say it's above average. He figured out that tearing the plane apart wasn't causing the humans to come out, so he started to press on the plane to force them to come out. And he also has the ability to be genuinely malicious. That menacing stance he did behind Grant and Eric wasn't necessary. He could have just ambushed them and, killed them. Instead, he stood for a decent amount of time behind them and made sure that they saw him so that they could be terrified. As for disadvantages, there's not many, but there's a few I could think of. For example, his aggressive behavior. If he sees any theropod his size or even bigger, he almost certainly is going to charge at it, and if the predator is stronger than him, then it could be his death. And despite his build, he is a little prone to being put on the floor or at least take a quadrupod stance. I guess you could argue that adult T-Rexes would make most things go on the floor, but he was larger than them, so it was a bit weird. So that's the overall tally of 87 stats. Let's see the island that could be his final resting place. Just to be clear for this video, I'm going to be using Peter Jackson's Skull Island, not the Monsterverse Skull Island. The Spinosaurus would likely get bodied in a day. However, Peter Jackson's Skull Island isn't less impressive because the animals are not as big. I'd argue that it's actually even more dangerous than the Monsterverse version if you're not a giant kaiju. Skull Island was once part of a supercontinent called Gondwanaland, and after some time it broke off along with the other land masses. Its location was almost exactly in the middle of the major tectonic plates. Now, it wasn't a bad thing at the time because it did save the creatures in the island from an extinction event, but it was a price to pay for that. After it was separated, the island would forever be sinking as time went on. There were brief periods that would cause Skull Island to be connected with other land masses, so the migrations of different species could occur, but after some time it became so separated that it just wasn't possible anymore. And with the island gradually shrinking without rest, creatures left on the landmass were forced to directly compete with each other. It was something like how the Viltrumites weeded out the weak among their kind, but longer. After millions of years, entirely new species evolved, and the species that were already there evolved into even more powerful and aggressive versions of themselves. So to survive here, you need to be extremely hardy and lucky. As a matter of fact, like 70% of it is luck. There are literally hundreds of different creatures on this island, and I'm not going to do all that, so I'll just be posting some of the main ones 87 would likely run into. Due to just how competitive the island has become, the herbivores are now evolved to either be tanks or missiles. The sauropods, for example, are absolute tanks. Skull Island's brontosaurs are decently heavier than their real counterparts. Wait, is brontosaurus still a real thing? Give me a moment. Okay, yeah it is, for now, I think. Reaching lengths of 120 feet and weighing more than 70 tons, they are the largest things that roam the island and are... They are the largest things that roam Skull Island and can usually be seen in tight-knit groups. Unlike traditional sauropods, these ones give birth to live young, usually no more than 5. This actually makes the numbers kinda grow because instead of just laying eggs and leaving it up to fate, the herd shelters the young until they can fend for themselves. And even all the sauropods like the Diablosaurus, which looks more like a reptilian rhino than a sauropod, is heavily guarded. It may have not been as big as the Brontosaurus at around 30 feet, but when it reached adulthood, its armor would be so thick that even the V-Rexes wouldn't even attempt to tackle them, most of the time. And their horns could be used as weapons too. Then of course there are the ceratopsians like the Ferrocotus, I hope I did not say that wrong, which are extremely aggressive, and bulls will usually choose to fight over flight. And with a length between 24 and 30 feet and 9+ tons, most carnivores don't even risk it. When it comes to the water, which is what the Spinosaurus is used to, they are a good amount of predators. We've got our crocodilomorphs, pterocasis, juvenile scorpiopedes, etc, etc. But none of these exceed 1 ton and are actually prey for one of the largest predators on the entire island, the Pteranodon, a massive fish that hunts like a whale's catfish today, attacking prey from the riverbanks and then dragging them into the depths. This odd looking fish from hell has massive jaws and teeth that are more than a foot long. Males of the species don't get more than 20 feet long, but the females can reach 50 feet and weigh 14 tons, which easily makes them the largest aquatic predators of Skull Island's water systems. Even with that weight, they still have good agility and the power to drag prey from the shore into the water. Their fins are actually very powerful and more evolved that allows them to get further up in the banks. Something like what we saw in Walking with Dinosaur's Hyneria, but the water could be somehow avoided if you just take sips from puddles or wait for rain, but the land could not be avoided, and this is where things start to get interesting. Like there's so many different carnivores here that I'ma just skip the ones we see in film. There is of course the ugly ass Phytodon that buries itself in litter near game trails to ambush passing prey, and with a weight of 2 tons there's fuel it couldn't have brought down. And there's the island's version of raptors, the Venatosaurus. These evolved dromaeosaurs can reach 20 feet and approach a ton. Yet even with this relatively small size, they are still able to take down prey much larger than themselves, but they prefer to hunting small groups to minimize injury. Sometimes they try to negate injury altogether. They are smart enough to cause stampedes for animals like the Brontosaurus, so they'd run off and fall off dangerous places where the only thing left to do is to just venture down and enjoy a free lunch. The invertebrates here are honestly the worst thing though, especially the Wetarex. While not being the strongest bugs in the pit, they are the ugliest and are strictly carnivorous. Their way of attack is a straightforward one. They don't fear anything and completely just throw their safety away, just swarming at anything that enters the chasm. Then there are the grizzly-sized crabs, the Duplectors. They wait in caves or small openings just to snap up anything that you can grab and pull in. And then there are a few others like the Carnictus and the weird-ass crickets. Perfect examples of why I'm glad bugs aren't bigger than a mousepad, usually. On to the real heavy hitters, starting off with the Vastatosaurus Rex. This evolved T-Rex is a little larger than the average Rex, with adults reaching lengths of 50 feet and 13 tons, or possibly even more than that in some individuals. Despite their bulk, these things are far more agile and faster than any real Rex. And the real Rex already is very agile. They have been given hips, and the creators themselves wanted the animals to move more like serpents, allowing them to maneuver like no other megatheropod. That's not all. Their jaws are now more compact and their teeth are fully exposed. The exposed teeth should technically cause some problems, but this is a movie so I won't look into it. Their bite force is around 20% stronger than the real counterpart, and their speed is something to behold. These animals can reach 25 miles per hour, yet they still have enemies. As the skull crawlers have Kongs, they had, well, Kongs. This massive ape was revered by the natives of the island. Fully upright Kong stands at 25 feet tall canonically. Some shots though he appears to be much taller, which I think was intentional, as one of the directors said that they wanted a wow factor. Kinda weird, but we'll roll with it. He weighs a little less than a Vastatosaurus but is more powerful. He was able to fight off 3 of them at once while handicapped, with a woman in his arms, and could casually pick up stones weighing tons with one arm and just drop it on the opponent. In the city, he was also able to catch up with the speeding taxi, which makes him faster than any megatheropod in the Jurassic universe, possibly even more than Rexy. Alright, I think it's about time we drop 87 and see how he fares. Without much detail, I can tell you that the herbivores don't really stand a chance. I mean, the Brontosaurus would be a challenge and something he would likely stay away from because of the trauma tried to bring it down. and not to mention just how easily a stampede probably could kill him. But if he does have the capability to technically kill any single sauna, even the Brachiosaurus, he kinda should be able to kill one of these things. Although these guys are like 15 or 20 tons heavier than the Brachie, so I guess that's a factor. But everything else is fair game, and the aggressive ceratopsians, well, their brash nature won't save them from a 10-ton crasher that kills T-Rexes for a living, and unironically he is more durable than them and has the power to bring them down. As for the armored sauropods, well, it's a hit or miss. Their armor is stated to deter even V-Rexes, but 87 is able to tear planes apart and destroy massive dinosaur fences, so I'm a bit on the fence. I personally would say that 87 could bring one down, but usually they travel in groups and defend each other, but so far everything else is looking good for 87. Eventually he will find a water source, and just like Sorna, nothing there can challenge him, except for the Pteranodon of course. This time he'd actually be the one trying not to end up as fish food, and given the largest females can be 4 tons heavier than him, it should be a no-brainer, right? Well, not exactly. Size is often a good indicator of who would win in nature, especially with animals, but that's nature in the real world. In the movies, size isn't everything. Fiction allows these animals to pull off some insane feats. There is a chance of one of these fish ambushing 87 just before he enters the water and grabs his neck, but I don't think they'd be able to kill him. Despite their size, their jaws aren't really meant for crushing. They can't even bite through some thick tree roots, which makes it weaker than the bite force of a Jurassic Park Rex, which the Spinosaurus can just shrug off. He could just start ripping into the fish as it's biting him, forcing it to let go, where he'd more than likely finish the job. Would he be injured? Yeah, more than likely, but not as much as you believe. If massive spikes can't dent his hide while moving at full force, then I don't think the fish would be able to do the same, or not much more. And for those that say, well, the piranha has the strongest bite force pound for pound, well, guess what? This thing's jaws are not that of a piranha. They look like a pyara. Their teeth are meant for piercing and holding on to prey rather than crushing, so again, 87 survives. But he would need to watch out for these things because in the book, I think they are very abundant despite being so large, so he would need to watch his step, or technically where he swam. The chasm or the pit would be interesting though. None of those things could pierce his hide, or quickly enough at least before he snatches them off, but the sheer number of them could possibly tire him out, and because these things really don't care what falls down there no matter how big or dangerous, they will swarm him. But to be honest, if he finds himself down there, then he's already likely dead from the fall or seriously injured. But the chances of him falling down is rare given his experience with multiple different types of terrain. He'd know to be cautious. Alright, so now that we're moving on to the plains, I'll go right ahead and say it. If you're not a V-Rex, then you're no competition to this guy. The Photodon, Phytodon, whatever, and the Postosuchus-like animals in the land can't touch him, and unless there's like 10 Venatosaurus working together, he's gonna put them down. And even if, they likely won't attack him, because from the perspective of these animals, the sail makes 87 look much larger and more intimidating than he actually is, even though he has already both of these things. So then, the V-Rex. I'm using the one seen in the film. Pluses of the V-Rexes: they are bigger, more agile, yes, even more than 87, believe it or not, faster, and they have a stronger bite force. But there's one flaw in the ones in the film. They are not in their prime anymore due to inbreeding. Most of the V-Rexes at the time on the island were inbred, and while they don't look like it, they aren't as strong as they were in the past. Are they still powerful? Yes, 100%. I will definitely make 87 sweat. But this is another situation where size, at least from this scale, doesn't really help these guys. The V-Rexes have experience fighting other V-Rexes. And don't say Kong, because the ones in this generation likely never saw another Kong before, or probably just saw Kong, but that's just about it. And the Spinosaurus has experience fighting T-Rexes, but the Phastatosaurus has never fought anything like 87. Originally, the Spinosaurus would hold off a little due to the almost 3-ton size difference, but eventually a fight will break out. Not because of the V-Rex, but because of 87, who sees any other big theropod as a target. A bite from one of these guys would be devastating, but not much worse than a bite from Big E.T. or Rexy. Remember, these guys aren't in their strongest forms anymore, and their bites don't even damage Kong as much as they should. The dinosaurs of Jurassic Park are bullet resistant, and 87 can kill most of them. And Kong isn't as bullet resistant, not even close as a matter of fact. Yet 3 of them really couldn't affect Kong. Their durability is also somewhat abysmal. No, I take that back. It's actually pretty good for an animal in the real world. But one of these guys was killed with a 5-ton stone being dropped on their head. Things like Rexy had a 10-ton Giganotosaurus stomp on her head and she just got back up. And while I don't think the Spinosaurus is quite as durable as Rexy, I'd say that he's relative to her, so something like that likely wouldn't kill him. To be honest, I think he'd beat one mid-diff. I haven't seen these guys show any big durability feats, and he has experience dealing with animals similar but just smaller, while they haven't fought anything like the Spinosaurus before. It kinda would be possible for him to snap one's neck, but it would be much harder due to the size difference. he'd likely just try to tire it out and then do the deed. But regardless, he still will come out of the fight very injured, so he wins the battle but not the war. While normally solitary, there could be multiple of these guys in the same area due to the island shrinking, and even the Spinosaurus couldn't survive 3 or even 2 of evolved Rexes that have deficiencies, and they can't work together, so he'd be cooked. The only way I see a single V-Rex beating 87 is if it was a fully healthy individual, or the ones from the game that are more than 15 tons. But what about Kong? Short answer, he wins. I have seen people say Rexy beats Kong or the Indominus beats Kong because he was taken on by gunfire, while the dinosaurs there are bullet resistant to an extent, but that's the only real argument they make. They also try to bring up that he only won that fight because the V-Rexes were inbred and he was using the terrain to his advantage. But they never mentioned the fact that he did all of this with just one arm, and when he finally got to use both of his arms, he absolutely destroyed a single V-Rex even though he was injured. And so what if they aren't as strong as they were before? That's still almost 40 tons of theropod charging at him from all sides while he has a handicap. Kong, however, whether I like it or not, is very susceptible to piercing damage because he doesn't have the thick hide compared to the dinosaurs. Would the fight be close? Absolutely. I'm not saying that he one-shots 87 like he did the V-Rex, but his knowledge of the area and overall intelligence would give him the edge. And believe it or not, they are somewhat close when it comes to physical strength, and both utilize their limbs and jaws while fighting, but I don't think 87 would be able to outmuscle his way out of this one. Enough heavy punching and even biting could wear the Spinosaurus down, not to mention Kong would use rocks, trees and other stuff as weapons when he isn't protecting someone else. So for me at least, I think Kong wins high difficulty, so he'll definitely be heavily injured and has a chance of even dying from those injuries in the future if he's not careful. So then, what's my verdict? I think 87 has like a 50% chance of surviving the island. This sounds off given just how well I said he was doing to most of the other creatures, but unlike Jurassic Park, there is no designated amount of creatures that can be controlled. Here, everything breeds like crazy, and it's very likely that after fighting one thing, there could be another fight of something else of the same species. To be honest, if he's careful and manages to avoid territories with multiple V-Rexes in them, he should be okay. And also avoiding Kong because that ape is not going to run away and could just launch a massive log from the distance that could stun 87 if he isn't paying attention. The Pteranodon, believe it or not, could also be a threat if he has multiple run-ins with different ones at the same day. Because no matter how you put it, fighting multiple truck-sized fish with steak-knives teeth would tire even Jason Voorhees out. But as I said, he is smart and would likely know how to tread once he gets used to the place, and the Pteranodon could actually be a food source, especially the males even though they're not that abundant. And if he somehow escapes a run-in with a small group of V-Rexes, he would likely use that experience to his advantage and try to stay away from those areas. So overall, I think he should do decently okay if he's careful, because the only thing one-on-one that could kill him is Kong, and since Kong is the only one of his species on the entire island, there could be a chance that Acid 87 never even sees the ape. But let me know what you guys think. Would 87 be able to overcome this island as he did Sorna, or am I giving him too much credit? Anyway, that's it for this one folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.